Well, hello, Greg. How you doing? Happy Friday to you.
Yeah, same to you. Hello. It's awesome to be here. And what a day to actually do our live show. Perfect timing, I think.
It's perfect timing. I know. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, stay tuned. But for those of you who are brand new, welcome to In the Loop. I am Winnie's son, and as you can tell, here is Greg Nibbler with us. We are really excited to be here with us, and happy Friday. I know, Greg, we're not here on Friday that often, right? This is kind of a treat.
Yeah, it is a little bit different than normal. And yeah, thanks to everybody who's joining in right now, wherever platform you're watching on. I'm Greg Nibbler. Those of you who watch the show know that. But if you don't, thanks for joining us today. I'm a tech reporter, tech journalist for a long time in all kinds of different fields, covering a lot of it and all different angles. But today we do have some big things to talk about. But the one thing about this show, too, is we're live and we can take your comments and see what you're saying as well. So please let us know what you want to talk about and what your thoughts are on everything as we go through some of the big news today.
There's some big news for sure, Greg, and thank you so much for bringing it. Absolutely, we see a lot of comments coming in already. I see Joshua CrossX Fighter joining from YouTube Live, and I see Vicky joining us as well on Facebook Live. Wow, so many big audience today. It's so much. We have so much to talk about. I can't believe we have so much to talk about on a Friday afternoon. But
Right.
here, like Greg said, I am Winnie's son, also longtime financial pro. CNBC council member, Forbes contributor, host of Level Up, which can also be found on NASDAQ and a couple of their platforms. But as Greg mentioned, we got to kick it up, Greg. It's like there's a lot that we need to talk about Elon and the Twitter deal. But before we get there, let's talk about how the market closed, okay? Because the
Yes.
Dow closed down 46 points, NASDAQ up 13 points, and the S&P 500 also down 3, I should say. And there's been continuous talk about us whether or not we are in a recession, if we're close to a recession, and all that good stuff. But let me just tell you, today actually the job market numbers came in, and well, they actually looked a lot better than we expected. So it's almost like the job market didn't really get the memo that we're sort of close to being in a recession, because it seems like more people are actually getting jobs. In fact, the average hourly wage for many Americans actually rose by 5% versus a year ago, which was actually faster than estimates were. So definitely a lot of people going back to work, which typically, as you know, if we're going into a recession, that usually means layoffs. But these are the areas that are doing well: education, health services. These are sort of the areas where people are getting new jobs. I guess they're really hiring for more teachers and people in the medical profession, and as well as professional business services and stuff like that. Any of this come to a surprise, Greg?
I mean, yeah, just based on what it seems like the general feeling has been, that little bit of dread, I guess, that everybody kind of has over what's going on. So I think that's great news that the jobs are going up, or that people are getting hired. So I think, and I trust you on your opinions on this more than my own when it comes to the financial side of things. But that does seem like that's a good trend.
It's a good trend. But I think
Yeah.
one area, Greg, we would agree, right? That like literally an hour before we got on,
Yeah.
actually I was preparing this content, Greg, that's saying that there was been a lot of trending news about more layoffs at Twitter. In fact, they laid off like 100 people today. Recruiters are being laid off because everybody was expecting that changes would take place when Elon finally took over Twitter. I'm sure you saw that too. This is
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's what we've all been expecting, but seeing the layoffs at Twitter, just seeing all the inner turmoil and the stuff that's come out about some of the leaked memos and dialogue between the employees about all the nervousness of him taking over and just kind of the chaos that has been this thing that's been going on now for the last few months, ever since Elon jumped into it and just stirred up the pot of everything social media and everything on Twitter. And then now today's news just adding on top of that.
on top of that.
You
I
know?
mean, I think, yeah, absolutely. This was breaking news. Greg
Yeah.
and I were just talking about this, shared it on social. I see Vicky, who's joining us from Facebook, like also said, yeah, breaking news. In fact, Sadiq, I did see this, Sadiq. Sadiq actually tweeted me back after we talked about breaking news of Elon Musk and the Twitter deal falling through. And Elon, actually, Sadiq sent me an Adele song. And I thought it was like really perfect, Sadiq. Actually, that was really, really fun, what you did. But Greg, did you expect? I mean, this sort of is sort of classic Elon, right? Like he
It,
definitely has a presence. I mean, do it on a Friday. He literally does it at the Friday when most people are on their way home, like as if we wouldn't notice.
right. I know. As nobody's going to notice Elon Musk filing this thing. I mean, it's just the whole thing is just bizarre. I think we can all admit this is weird. It's all been weird because it is Elon Musk, just because of how he goes about things, because of what he posts. You know, he's not what you would expect for somebody who's going to take over one of the biggest media platforms in the world. But then on top of that, you know, he disappeared for like, what was it, like 2 weeks? I don't know how many days it was, but he was just gone, like
Mhm.
off of Twitter, to where people were trying to speculate what was going on with him. You know, what was he up to? And then all of a sudden he comes back and he's just, you know, lights it up over the last couple of days. And now this bombshell,
And
that
not
he's
just,
coming out with.
I mean, Greg, let's think about it, right? Like literally last couple of years or last prior to recently, Donald Trump dominated Twitter, right? Like he was all over, and like literally, it was so much activity then. Then I think there's a
Yep.
lot of like Kanye West activity. I feel
Yes.
like this Elon drama kind of falls in this spectrum where, like, you don't even need to worry about the Kardashians right now because literally, just like last week, I was reading about financial news and whatnot, and turns out Elon Musk just had twins. Did you see that? He just
Yeah.
had twins and a surrogate baby like weeks apart with obviously two women, but
Yeah.
like you got Tesla going on, you got SpaceX, you got all these things that Greg talks to us about. Then we're talking about how he has 10 babies, and I guess he's also tweeting out, Greg, that like he feels like people aren't having enough children, so he
Yeah.
says he's doing his part to bring in more children. So like, haha, he has 10 kids. He has 10 kids. This
Yeah.
is
It's just so weird. It's hard to keep up with it all, to be honest, like with everything that goes on with him, because like you mentioned, like the tech side of things, I'm fascinated with that, with all of his companies, with be it SpaceX, be it Tesla, be it Neuralink, even the Boring Company, everything he's doing there's some really cool things that have been announced too about Starlink or interesting topics. But then it's like he overpowers his own PR for his own companies because he becomes the topic and not so much the companies and the tech that he's working on. It's just he overtakes it with everything that he's doing, and I don't know if that's a good thing or if this is ultimately good PR for him, bad PR for him. He's definitely talked about maybe it's any PR is good PR, but
I know
he's
about
certainly
that.
right. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, Greg, is a $44 billion offer, right, to buy
yeah,
out Twitter. And let's be honest, Twitter isn't just a social media platform. Twitter is where so many of us get our news, right? Breaking news, obviously,
yeah,
like we're seeing today with this news. It got hit just like that. Like literally, it got my news because I follow news so carefully. It hit like that, and I saw it hit on Twitter just that quickly. And
yeah.
so, like
I'm
seriously,
looking at it right now. I mean, it's everywhere.
it's
Just since it's his
everywhere.
breaking news, I've got my news feed pulled up, and yeah, it's all
It's
Twitter.
all over, and he's the richest man in the world, and with that comes power and opportunity and responsibility. And he makes an offer for Twitter for 44 billion, which, let's be honest, when the news hit, you and I were a little surprised, and certainly a lot of employees at Twitter, like we were reading things about the employees crying and being so sad and feeling like this was just really bad, right? You and I talked about this, but and then they said, Greg, I read this too, right? There's a $1 billion penalty if this deal doesn't go through.
Yeah, that's the part that I'm really going to be interested to see how this shakes out, like what exactly the financial deal was, because that's what I've heard that same thing too, $1 billion penalty, which, if you're Elon Musk, he ostensibly can afford $1 billion, but that's still a lot of money to back out of it. But it seems like he's trying to position it that it was Twitter that did something wrong, and based on the statement anyway that just came out, and I'm sure there's a lot of analyzation of that to go on, but he's essentially talking about how it's because Twitter, it didn't give him access to the stuff that he wanted, to verify how many spam bots are on there. Twitter says it's a low amount. He says it's higher. And Twitter has publicly stated that they've given him access to like the fire hose data, like the raw data that they've got to verify their information. He says they're not giving it to him. So what's really gone on here? It seems like that's something that should be quantifiable. Whether, if he asked for it, they didn't give it. There's got to be some paperwork here, not just well, they said this, they said that. This is a $44 billion deal. Somebody's keeping track of this. So what is really gone on here?
Yeah, I mean, I love what you said. It's so true. They were saying, Twitter was saying, like, I love how you use that term, the fire hose. I saw that in the news too. It's true. Like, supposedly they gave them access to everything. They were saying, 50 million tweets. I don't know.
Something like that per second, or
yeah,
a crazy amount of data.
And I guess his attorney, Mike Ringler, is saying that, quote unquote, Twitter has not complied with its contractual obligations. So that to me sounds like I'm trying to get out of the $1 billion penalty. I just want out of this deal and like, don't hit me with the penalty. Does that sound like you?
Yeah, very much that he wants to do that. And it's been speculated too, that since he's been saying this stuff for weeks, if not months, talking about the spam bots, really focused on that side of things, that was all him planting this, seed essentially to figure out his way out of it. Mm-hmm. And that could be for a myriad of reasons, whether Tesla not doing as well, stock wise, or some issues going on with the financing. There could be a lot of things in there, or maybe he just decided that he bit off more than he could chew, and he decided this is just not something that he wants to do. But they did agree to it. So, this must be his way of getting out. And I certainly think it's a lot more than just this spam bot issue that he's saying. There's got to be more to it than that, because that just seems like that's a quantifiable thing that could have been handled. And this is the one he's latching on to.
Yeah, I agree with you because, based on the information that we've been seeing so far, right? I mean, based on, we know he made the offer, and then quickly, like in April, he quickly started to backpedal and say, it was almost like he got cold feet. Then he was kind of saying like, I don't know, and this and that. And then, and he was making some strange remarks on Twitter. And then he was saying that like they have more spam bots, and Twitter was saying, no, it's about 5%. He was saying it's more. And then they gave him more access to more data, and they continue. And then he was still spewing more stuff on social media. And then it was interesting because then it's been reported, I saw this news actually trending on LinkedIn this week about saying that he actually put on pause trying to get financing for this deal. And it wasn't even like recently. I guess it's been a little bit where he sort of put financing on pause. And if you're really serious about making a $44 billion deal, even if it's like you and I doing a $44,000 deal, right? We would start to like look at our credit and like figure out where we could shift some funds. Like there's a process to this. You don't just all of a sudden like freak out. And of course, we know that the stock price has obviously dropped significantly since then too. So the question is it I'm completely no deal, right? Or is it, okay, there could be a deal, but at a certain price? Or is it, I'm going to walk away from the deal, but don't hit me with the $1 billion and see you later, alligator.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why it's so hard to predict him. He's such an unpredictable person, from everything that you just mentioned. So maybe this is his negotiating tactic. He doesn't want to pay 44 billion. He wants to pay 40 or whatever, wants to knock some dollars off of that to keep it going. And I don't know how that deal is structured, if that's something they can do. I'm assuming, both parties are interested, they could do that. I doubt Twitter would want to do that, would want to lower their price.
It would be, I think the shareholders wouldn't be too keen on that. We have a lot of comments coming in, so I want to share some of these with you, Greg, if that's okay. Vicky is saying he loves the drama of Twitter for sure, giving us lots of happy faces and soap opera. And does this mean he can lead money over brains? And I see Robin Stevens saying Musk's own brand is now larger than his own companies, which is really interesting because Robin is sort of the brand guru. She like knows everything about branding, and that's not good. It makes his companies vulnerable to his actions every minute of every day. So true, right? Like
that is such a good comment and observation. Yeah. Because it is.
Yeah, you are your brand, right? I mean, like when you think about like now, like Tim Cook, for example, with Apple, I feel like Tim Cook is well regarded and therefore Apple has less drama, right? They keep personal data. It is. Robin's saying it's see ya later, alligator. That's what she says too.
I think he's just out. Yeah, and that could be. Maybe this is just he's out, doesn't want to pay the $1 billion. He'll tie it up for however long he has to do to try to, not pay that. Maybe that's what happens. But I mean, it opens up so many other questions too. I love that brand comment, just to talk about that for a second, because that's exactly right. Because now everything that SpaceX does, everything that Tesla does, it's shaded by him. He's in the way almost of his own success with that stuff. And it doesn't mean that the companies aren't still doing some really great things, but he's the news. He becomes the news. And I don't feel like that's how it should be, especially when it came down to Twitter as well. You don't want I guess you do have Mark Zuckerberg, who is kind of a personality, but I don't feel like he's Elon Musk, like in that, where he's just,
Yes. No.
I feel it's a little bit different, at least a little bit different of a style.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg, you see him barbecuing, hanging out with his family in Hawaii. It's a very different type of brand, right? Than like Elon. I mean, this is like sort of volatile when you're getting into politics and you're talking about stuff like that people can't really relate to. Let's be honest, right? And the other thing is, I mean, this is a bit of financial news too, is that Tesla last month, which is in June, just actually achieved its highest monthly sales of cars that were made in China. So Tesla's actually doing really, really well. And even with the COVID lockdowns and whatnot, they're actually making quite a bit of money. So maybe I would think that Tesla shareholders and other companies might feel, come on, I want you to kind of hang out and pay attention. I don't know. I'm just asking the question. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's all speculation, really. And I would be, curious to anybody out there who's watching too. Have you been wanting to get a Tesla, and would Elon Musk's statements or how he acts, would that influence your decision whether or not to buy a Tesla? Would that lead you into a different vehicle? I mean, because let's be honest, Teslas are really cool. They're great.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have one, right? I believe.
I do. I love my Tesla, and it's the best car I've ever driven by far. Sadiq is saying Elon Musk was in Rome with the Pope. That's right, just recently. But yeah, I mean, like, absolutely. Like you and I have talked about this many times. We got to give credit where credit is due. He makes some phenomenal vehicles. They really are. I actually love my Tesla, and I do think he's really gotten us to think about our vehicles very differently. And certainly I love the idea of going electric powered versus gas powered. It's certainly been very helpful during the pandemic. But the thing is, I think there's that fine line, right? If Elon was out there touting like, charitable work or helping the poor or other things, like people helping those in Ukraine, doing like a lot of that type of branding, I think I would feel really good about. But he's talking about things that I think are very polarizing, right?
Yes.
This is really interesting. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to continue to follow this story, see where it takes us.
Yeah. I mean, and I think you're right. Just the things that he posts and says. I mean, we all knew he's a unique guy. I mean, there's no doubting that. And he is a very forward thinker, a visionary, really, when it comes to what he's done with some of his companies. And but the things that he posts, it's just like, sometimes it feels like something that, a 12-year-old boy would post, or it's, you're the richest man in the world. Like, you do have some kind of responsibility there, you would think, or maybe that's what it is when you're the richest person in the world. You don't have to worry about anything. But
Greg, you make a good point, but like, let's be honest, like Jeff Bezos just recently he has a yacht so big that, like, I guess he made a city take apart their creek or something so he could go through it. So I don't know. I always feel like with money, it's like more money, it just sort of amplifies your true persona. So maybe what we're getting is true. I'm sure it's true Elon. This is like true Elon,
Yeah, right. If you follow that Twitter feed, I mean, it is all over the place. I think, and there were some people who were excited about him taking over Twitter and some of the potential changes and some of the things that he suggested, that they may have been good for Twitter. But then there's also the other ones that are just completely out there that seem to me to be a little bit unnecessary. All his statements, about freedom of speech and just not really moderating anybody, and anybody could say anything because that's what it is. And I feel like I feel like that's not the right approach. I think you do have to have some limitations. You can't shout fire in a theater. You can't be. I think there's some level of moderation that's appropriate for these things.
I'm in agreement with you, Greg.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just how I think it should be. I think a lot of people, but there's also lots of people who agreed with Elon that want it to be that way. And so I wonder, how this is going to look now for that, and what's the future of Twitter now? What's gonna happen? Say that he does back out. Is it just back to business as usual? I mean, I can't imagine there's another buyer to come in, but they've been preparing for this. So how does that all shake out? Like, what's going to happen now? I feel like it's more up in the air and just hard to predict now than it was even with him taking over, and that was already crazy.
Well, there's something that, it's interesting you see that, Greg, because and I want to share some comments before I get this, but we're seeing Robin says that his posting content is like reality shows, like a reality show star. Couldn't agree with you more, Robin. And Vicky is saying he's brilliant with technology, but when it comes to Twitter, to Twitter is, I'm guessing, is a nightmare. And sort of that $1 million question. And the other thing is, if you're following Twitter, one area that honestly and kind of behind the scenes, a lot of people are talking to me about is Twitter is like showing this new thing called the code tweet. And I don't know if you've seen that, Greg, but definitely, would relay and ask you to maybe expand on that a little bit more, because I think it's really, really interesting. But I don't know. I mean, have you seen much about the code tweet?
Yeah, I was just reading about it today, and I haven't seen it actually implemented yet, but the idea that you could co-sponsor essentially a tweet and it'd be two people sharing that same message
together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the first thing I thought about when I saw it too. I'm like, I guess we could do a loop code tweet or something like that. I don't know, that's not a feature that I ever actually thought about was really necessary, but I guess that could be kind of interesting to see how that works. But yeah, there's that the other side too, all the different features that they have been rolling out, things that were going to be happening, are those still going to happen? How is that all going to shape up? Because Twitter already, and this was even before Elon, was saying that they were going to be making some changes. They were going to be adding in some new features. There was always the possibility of the edit button, and how that can shake out, because that's something everybody always wants. And, we'll have to see where the rest of it goes. The code tweet thing, I'm just not really sure where it's really applicable, in a frequent use case situation. I was trying to think about how that would actually work. Maybe something more governmental. We have two governments like sharing something, or political figures. I don't know.
It's just ping pong. I mean, like, you and your friends, like, we could basically just tweet each other on Twitter, and we wouldn't be an official code tweet, but we could just ping pong tweets, right? So
yeah, it accomplishes the same thing, you would think. But so that is kind of an interesting feature. But I think just with the chaos of Elon Musk, I mean, my gosh, this guy, no matter what he does, there's always something to talk about, whether that's good or bad. It is definitely the case with him.
And he's not boring, that's for sure. We got to give points for that.
Yeah, exactly. So what happens now? What's the next step? Is this going to be a big legal battle for months that we're going to be seeing, where Twitter's in limbo? And what's that going to do to the stock? What's that going to do to the platform, not knowing who is going to be there? Like, can they enforce it that he has to buy it? Or how does that, all shake out? There's just so many questions, really.
Well, Twitter said they're not gonna back down. Twitter's executive staff, I think there was a quote came out, I can't remember exactly when, but basically, I think it was just recently, they said they absolutely want to see this deal through, and if Elon pulls out, they will fight to the end legally to make sure this deal happens. So based on the fact that this announcement, this breaking news, came from Elon's attorney, I think the two legal teams are probably getting kind of busy thinking how they're going to fight this. But in the meantime, like, how is it going to impact Twitter? How is it going to impact their employees? Those are really interesting comments. So it's really interesting. I'd love to see those of you. I see many of you joining us today. Let us know what your thoughts on that are. But
I'm taking a look right now just to see what else if there's anything else that has come out about this, since it's just kind of happened, not very long ago, just a couple of hours ago, really, or less. And just to see where this is going to go, because this
is big news.
It's big news.
Well, I'll let you check and scan that real quick while I actually share with a little bit of positive news. And this is something I know that you'll like and I'll like. And this is, Amazon Prime speaking of other billionaires, Jeff Bezos and Amazon Prime now is signed a new deal with Grubhub. So those of you who have Amazon Prime now get this new food delivery perk. So you get free Grubhub Plus for a whole year, which I think is about $10 a month. But basically, the deal is if you order at least $12, you will get free delivery and you'll get all other perks and discounts and things like that. And so this is another way for Amazon to get more of our market share. And so Amazon has acquired a 2% stake in Grubhub's parent company, which is called JustEatTakeaway.com. So as part of the agreement, so Amazon is going to provide free access to meal delivery service, which is available in over 4,000 cities, I should say, and 300,000 plus restaurants. So yeah, Greg, they're going to know even more about us. That's what I get from that.
I will say when I saw that come out yesterday, I signed up for it already because if you go into your Prime account, you can sign up and get the free Grubhub. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm like, hey, if it's already included, why not? I'm definitely going to sign up for it. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. There was also the other perk too that came out about the Lord of the Rings trailer for their new series. That you had to be a Prime member to watch the new trailer for that series. That's that multi-billion dollars. I can't remember how many billions of dollars that Bezos paid for that to produce that new series.
Oh, I'm going to check that out. Thank you so much, Greg, for sharing that with us.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it looks so far, but it's still I'll watch it no matter what. I'll definitely watch it, whether it's good or not. But they put some production value in it, so that's one of the things that for that trailer. But yeah, and I think leading up to Prime Day too, are there going to be more things like that are thrown in there? Just kind of free things that you can add on. I'm always for it. They'll probably just raise the price of Prime, but for right now, take the freebies while you can.
We'll take it what we can. And by the way, I think it's Gabe. Gabe is joining us from LinkedIn Live, and he's actually saying, well, if he tries to back out to $1 billion buyout, that is true. So that's what we've been reading in the news. Greg and I were talking about that. If Elon pulls out of this deal, then technically it's a $1 billion penalty to get out of it. But as we mentioned earlier, it looks like he's trying to fight it, saying Twitter didn't comply with the agreement, and therefore it looks like it's going to be kind of a legal headache. So yeah, and then we see, let's take a look. It says Gabe's also asking, when will Amazon start their own hospitals and healthcare? Actually, I've been seeing that. I always saw something about Amazon healthcare coming out. And then let's see. Robin is saying food and Lord of the Rings. I'm all in. We love you, Robin. Very fun. All right, Greg. Well, I want to hear. What's going on for you this week? Have you seen any interesting things in the world of tech?
Well, it's been a kind of a slow week on that. Then Elon Musk has really taken over a lot, but I did have a couple of things that are going on just to bring up, because you mentioned, the Grubhub thing. I thought that was just kind of a cool add-on. There's something else that people can try at home now too, at least on more devices, and that is Netflix announcing they're going to have spatial audio is going to be on certain programs. And they put out a list of programs, but Stranger Things being one of them, and a few other ones, I think The Witcher and a few of them in there. But spatial audio, if you haven't tried that out, it's a pretty cool feature. And they're saying it'll work on actual stereo speakers, so you don't necessarily have to get this big giant surround sound system, although that's best for it. But it's the idea that it'll make sounds seem like they're coming from specific parts of the screen almost. So if somebody's over here, it'll sound like it's over there, or in the middle of it. It just kind of adds on to the experience of watching something. So I'm really excited to try that out, and that's, I think, available now for anybody who wants to try that out. So something this weekend, if you haven't watched Stranger Things yet, I already blew through all of that. That would be a good one to try it out on. I'm sure that it's pretty amazing, and the better the sound system you have, the more you'll get out of that. But I thought that was a cool addition for what they're adding on to something, and again, getting a little bit more for what you're already paying for it, something to try out.
I want, Greg, I guess I would love to hear your thoughts on what speakers we should consider getting for our television sets for that purpose, and that'd be really fun to see.
I could come up with a list actually of some good ones that would really help out with that, because it always depends on what your budget is. But anything Dolby Atmos, or if you want to go the full surround sound or just get a really nice sound bar, I think would be enough. There's some really good sound bars out there that aren't crazy expensive that you could get that would really enhance that, and they're able to directionally put the sound all over your room depending on where you are. So I think that would probably be a good way. Maybe next week I'll get a little list together, especially with Prime Day coming up too, that maybe there's some good
fun.
ones, to think about picking up. Now I'm thinking about picking one up myself, so I'm definitely gonna get that. I'm like, actually, I could use a new soundbar. So yeah, but that's one thing I noticed here this week that I was just kind of looking at things that people can try at home over the weekend and try out if you already have Netflix, Prime, Grubhub. A couple other things. Well, I could jump right into the thing that I'm really excited about for next week, which is there is a we just switched this week. So next week, let me get this pulled up here. And sorry, with all the Elon news, it just took over everything. So I'm getting everything in front of me here. But it has to do with the James Webb Telescope, where we're finally going to get to see the first pictures. So if you followed along with this, the James Webb Telescope, it's 20 plus years in the making to get this thing launched Christmas Day. It's been setting up ever since then. And finally, NASA's been teasing, we're going to get to see what the really, really cool images are that it's going to get. So the whole idea behind this is that we're going to be able to see deeper and clearer into space. We're going to be able to analyze more exoplanets. Maybe, the idea that with this, we could discover a planet with alien life on it, or the traces of a signature of an alien society, or alien life. That was one thing that this could actually show. But also it's going to see further back into the history of the universe, more stars, more things that we've never seen before. Like, these are things that we have never seen before. And they're going to release some of the first images coming up. I believe it's Tuesday morning. Tuesday is when we're going to get to see this. They're going to be doing a big production of it. That's something. Oh, go ahead.
This Tuesday, Greg?
This Tuesday. Yeah,
cool.
This Tuesday. So NASA's been putting out kind of a teaser on it of what it is that they're going to be doing. So they're targeting galaxies, nebulas, a giant planet out system. We may get to see all of these. We don't know exactly what they're going to show us, but it's going to be cool. And I will be tuning in 100% to watch that. So I've been looking forward to that for a while.
Greg, that sounds like it's something that's right up your alley. You probably like putting in your calendar.
Oh yeah, cool. Right up my alley. So they've said so to get its very first images, they observed targets objects and regions for space for 120 hours. So it's 5 days worth of data, and we don't know exactly what it's going to be, but they're really setting it up for a pretty good show. So whatever it is, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be, at least to me, and we're going to see things we've never seen before. So that is really cool.
He says, "Love bit of space." Yep.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I'm most looking forward to here for coming up. And then I'm sure there's going to be a lot more announcements that'll be coming out too about certain tech sides of things and some new products. Things are a little bit slow right now in that part. It's kind of, you reach this little bit of a lull for brand new products. I did see something else though that I thought was interesting, and this has to do with the World Cup, which is going to be coming up. The World Cup is taking place. I think it starts in October, goes through November. Since it's in Qatar, they're going to be doing it a little bit differently later in the year. But one of the things they're going to add on are some motion tracking sensors for the athletes themselves. So that, I think, that's controversial. I feel like for a lot of people, if you're a true fan of different sports, I know in baseball people can get a little bit upset if they're using too much tech. But this, I think, is going to be kind of cool just from the tech side of things, to see if somebody's offside and, trying to track what they're actually doing and see what they can get, see what kind of data you can get out of that. That's pretty cool. I'm into that. I want to see how that plays out. I know we may have people who may not like the idea of more tech in sports, that it should be simplified down, but that's what they're going to try. They're going to try it out. I'm all for it. I want to see it.
Well, that sounds fun. It sounds fun. I mean, I think all the things that you share so far sound great. You're giving us lots to stay home and watch for sure.
Yeah, right. Yeah, lots of things coming up. So it's always fun with tech, but certainly right now, Elon Musk is the talk of everything. Even today, there was another thing that came out from SpaceX with Starlink, where they're going to be having it now for boats. It's very expensive. I think it's like $5,000 to get set up for it, but it's you can now have a Starlink on your boat, so you can be way out in the ocean or on a ship and have Starlink satellite internet.
That's great.
So it's gonna be the Jeff Bezos of the world. Well, maybe not him, since he wouldn't want to use Elon Musk's product, but it's probably going to be something for your personal yacht. If you have one of those out there, this is going to be
You
right
have
here.
a personal yacht. I don't have a personal yacht. Maybe you watching have a personal yacht. If you do, hi from your yacht. But yeah, it's so interesting. What I will say, I have a very good friend in the Santa Barbara area, and her husband, no joke, they live off a boat. They don't live in a house. They live in a boat. And I was just thinking, I asked her, I'm like, how do you get internet access? And I guess when you dock, then you get a cable and you hook it onto your boat, so you have internet. But how great would that be to be in the middle of the ocean and have your Starlink internet, right? Because like I've been on these big, humongous cruise ships that have like 5,000 people, and the internet is, let's just say, it's so expensive. It's like you're buying a Tesla on the boat. But it would be really great to have affordable internet on the boat, in the plane, everywhere you go, right? I think that
For sure. Yeah. I think, the more that these are made, the more that's out there, the more satellites go up, eventually that price will go down, because they're talking about even incorporating it in with planes so that you could have high-speed internet, for much cheaper and more reliable on a plane, or maybe even included in your ticket. Mm-hmm. If that was part of it, that probably not, but that would be an idea of that. So I love the idea of more and more of that, because even the boat thing, they were saying it's some of the most remote places you could go in the ocean, they'll still have satellite internet. They'll still have that high-speed internet link no matter where you are. So I think more of that is good. I think more access to the internet wherever you are is going to be good. Even if you want to shut it off sometimes, I think it's good to have access to it.
I love it. That's really helpful.
So,
well, awesome, right? Sweet.
Yeah. So those are some of the things that I've been following this week, just kind of checking up on and seeing what's going on with that. But like I said, lots coming up in that James Webb telescope. Follow that. You'll want to see those pictures. Definitely.
We know where your priority is, Greg.
Yep, on this
telescope. Space. I love it. I love it. That's so awesome. Well, much to think about. And of course, we want to thank all of you for being on the show and being here with us. And like Greg has mentioned before, we love to hear from you. So if there's anything that resonated with you today, if you have comments, if you're finding something really cool, if there's just news that you think should be on our radar, definitely send us a message. We are on direct message everywhere that you are. Probably easiest place to reach me is on Twitter and LinkedIn. I'm sure Greg is probably the same as well. But otherwise, we just hope that you have an amazing weekend, right, Greg?
Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in and joining us here on this Friday. It's so much fun talking with everyone and, sharing in the news and just everybody giving their opinions, dropping it in comments or sharing the show. All of that so much. We have such a good time doing it, and it's all because of all of you watching. So thank you very much for doing that. And we'll be back next week too with another episode. And everybody have a great weekend. And I think that's it.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye.
Oh my gosh, did we really go for 37